All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Margita Ann Skinner. I was born and raised in Des Moines, Iowa. I was baptized in the Greek Orthodox Church at 9 months old. My mom is 100% Greek. She immigrated to the United States when she was 5 years old. My dad is a born and bred Iowan. Now, this is fairly common, but back when my parents got married 30 years ago, it wasn't. So, what makes me unique? What makes me special? What makes me different? And why am I here today? Well, there are many reasons. But what brings us all together as a community is our shared Orthodox faith and how we live our lives and how we share beliefs with the outside world. So I'm going to be talking about the Samaritan woman and the story of the Samaritan woman at the well. So who is the Samaritan woman and why is she important? The story of the Samaritan woman is found in the Gospel of John, specifically in John 4:1. The passage tells of an encounter between Jesus and a Samaritan woman at a well in the town of Sychar, located in Samaria. Jesus, traveling with his disciples, arrives at a well around noon. Now, this well is traditionally associated with Jacob, one of the patriarchs of Israel. Jesus, tired from his journey, sits by the well while his disciples go into the town to buy food. A Samaritan woman comes to the well to draw water. Jesus asks the woman for a drink, which is surprising for a few reasons. First, Jews and Samaritans typically don't associate with each other due to a long-standing enmity. Second, it was uncommon for men to engage with women in public spaces. Despite this, the woman responds, questioning why Jesus, a Jewish man, would ask her, a Samaritan woman, for a drink. Jesus answers that if she knew who he was, she would ask him for the living water, a term that refers to eternal life or spiritual nourishment. The woman, not understanding the deeper meaning of this, asks where he could get such water since the well is deep and he has nothing to draw with. Jesus explains that the water that he offers will quench a person's thirst forever, unlike the physical water from the well. The living water he speaks of is the Holy Spirit, which will satisfy the deepest spiritual thirst of the soul. The conversation then takes an unexpected turn when Jesus, revealing his divine insight, tells the woman to call her husband. She responds that she doesn't have a husband. Jesus, in his compassion and wisdom, says, "You are right when you say you have no husband. The fact is, you have had 5 husbands, and the man you now have is not your husband." The remark surprises the woman because Jesus knows intimate details of her life. The woman is amazed and begins to realize that Jesus might be a prophet. She then changes the subject slightly and asks about the correct place of worship, since there were disputes between the Jews and the Samaritans regarding whether worship should take place in Jerusalem or somewhere else. Jesus responds by saying that the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth, rather than being concerned with a specific location. As the conversation continues, the woman expresses her hope that the Messiah will come and explain all things. Jesus then reveals to her, for the first time in the Gospel of John, that he is indeed the Messiah. "I who speak to you am he." The woman, now filled with a sense of awe and wonder, leaves her water jar behind and goes back to the town. She tells the people of her town of the encounter with Jesus and urges them to come and see for themselves if he might be the Messiah. Her testimony leads many Samaritans to come to Jesus. As a result of the woman's testimony and the words Jesus speaks, many Samaritans now believe in him. They invite him to stay with them, and he stays for 2 days. The Samaritans, after hearing Jesus for themselves, affirm that he is the Savior of the world. Now, this story is so interesting to think about, and it just amazes me. You have this Samaritan woman at the well with Jesus. We just discussed this. She was there getting water, but she saw this stranger there, and she was taken aback, taken by surprise, and said, "This is Jacob's well," as well as if to say, "What are you doing here?" Instead of thinking, "This guy's been in the desert. He's tired, he's hungry, he's thirsty. What do we do in a situation like this? Yes, he's tired. It doesn't look like he's going to cause me any harm. Give the stranger some water. Ask him if he's all right. Ask him if he needs some sustenance, some food. She has the light of the world in front of her, but she chose to be a little condescending. So in our time, in today's time, think about our actions. How do we perceive strangers? We've been inundated by the media, all the things in the world, all the bad things. There's so much of it from corner to corner of the globe, and it doesn't stop. We live in a 24-hour news cycle. We hear it all the time. We have our phones, we have the TV, we have the paper, we get messages on our notifications on our phones, on our Apple Watches, and our iPads. So we read it, we see it. So it's easy today to not walk with a caring heart, but to walk with a careful mind and to act with our guts. Because we've been told, or at least I have by my mom, that you're a young woman. You need to understand that if your gut's telling you that the situation doesn't feel right, then you need to walk and run away. It's not a bad thing. We need to think about that. So we've been told that we don't walk with our hearts, we walk carefully with our guts, which is a good thing. But think about it. Think about in the context of today and in Jesus' time. Think about how we would have acted if we were in a situation like the Samaritan woman. Now, granted, she didn't have the 24-hour-a-day news cycle that we have now. She didn't have a phone, she didn't have an iPad, she didn't have a TV. She just saw someone sitting in front of her, tired, thirsty, hot, and worn out from crossing the desert. So, how would you have acted if you were in this situation? To give you an example of how sometimes we don't walk with our hearts, but we walk with our prejudices. I remember when I was very young, it was our first trip to Florida. We had gone to the beach. We were in Clearwater. Very first time. My parents were a little younger. My brother and I were younger kids. I was probably 9 or 10 and my brother was 13. One day, went to the beach like normal people. We were sitting on the beach, we had our umbrella, we were watching the people, watching the waves, just doing what normal people do on the beach, enjoying our time. My mom, being the people watcher that she is, spotted a couple about 100 feet in front of her, and they were by the shoreline. They were trying to take a picture of them with the water in the background. Now, what makes this couple special? There are so many people on the beach. Number one, they were middle-aged, and number two, they were African American. And she sat there and she watched people go by, go in front of them, go around them, go behind them, and nobody stopped to ask, would you like your picture taken? The two of you. They were trying so hard to get a picture of the two of them that was nice to show their friends and family when they got back from this vacation. But nobody stopped. And oddly enough, they didn't ask anybody to take their picture. So we sat there and watched, and I was sitting next to her, not really paying attention, kind of half paying attention, and she was watching this unfold. And finally, she got tired of watching this happen in front of her. She told me, she leaned over, she said, stay here for a minute, I'll be right back. And my dad was with us, so he was watching us. And I watched her get up. She didn't walk, she marched all the way to this couple. And she asked them, or I assume that she asked them, would you like your picture taken? And I saw them smile at her, so I'm assuming that's what she asked. And they kind of nodded and said yes. And she said, I'm just right over there. I saw that you wanted a picture, so I wanted to come over and take a nice picture of the two of you. And she stepped back. She took a couple poses of them, a nice middle-aged couple, just enjoying their vacation. She went back, gave them their phone, talked to them for a little bit. They exchanged some pleasantries. They smiled at each other. She came back and sat down with us. We asked her, Mom, what was that all about? She said, nothing. It's just this couple wanted their picture taken, and nobody was taking their picture. I don't know why nobody would. What's the harm in that? It's not a dark alley. You're not alone in an empty parking lot. You're not walking into a dark building by yourself. You're out in the middle of public. and they just wanted their picture taken on the beach. But I found that as I was thinking about a few things I wanted to prepare for this the other night, I thought about that and I remembered that. And it made me realize that you lead with your heart. You walk with your heart. You walk with your spirit that is inside of you, guiding you. Yes, there are times when you need to walk away. You need to act with your gut if the situation doesn't feel good, if it's scary, and if your gut and your heart's thumping, telling you to walk away and run while you're in a situation. But in this situation, you don't do that. Somebody just wanted a picture taken. But for whatever reason, nobody stopped. And I look at that, and I think, walk with your heart. What would Jesus have done in this situation? What would he have done? Would he have walked away from this couple? Or would have he gone to them and said, hey, do you need your picture taken? Do you want a nicer picture of the two of you? Of course they did. So this story, crazy enough, ties back to the story of the Samaritan woman at the well. Yes, I understand she was cautious, but you can also tell when there's harm to be caused to you and when there's not. Eventually, the Samaritan woman then converted, and she became a great advocate of Christianity. But in that instant, what did she do? Did she walk with her spirit and her heart guiding her faith? Or was she actually terse with Jesus? Here she had the light of the world sitting in front of her, and she was questioning his intentions of sitting with her and sitting at somebody else's well. So in that sense, I ask you to think about that. I ask you to think about your actions on a daily basis. I ask you to think about how you perceive the world, and in turn, how the world perceives you. Because it's not just a one-way street, it goes both ways. It goes both ways. And when Jesus told her, she started to take a pause. She started to think about it. Did I just say the right thing to this man? He's basically in us, in modern day speak. He's letting me have it. He's telling me that basically I'm an idiot and that you don't behave like that. And that's something that every parent would tell their child. And Jesus was educating his flock. So in turn, he was educating her on her behavior. Did she walk with her faith? Did she lean into her faith? Or did she run away from her faith in that moment? Think about how you perceive your faith. Think about how you perceive others around you. Think about, do you walk with them, with your faith, with your spirit, able and ready to help? Or do you run? Do you think maybe it's time for somebody else to step up? I have done this. I've volunteered. I have been there. So it's time for me to step back. It's time for somebody else to step up. Would this have been an opportunity to run away? Or to walk with your spirit in the light of God and offer to help somebody who's struggling, a stranger, somebody you know? Would you walk away from them? Because it's hard. I understand. It's hard to deal with things that aren't comfortable, like the woman and the man at the beach. They weren't comfortable. They didn't look like my mom and I. They were different. They were in the minority at that time. Everyone has their own internal demons that they struggle with. But in the end, you have to think of it as, what is your spirit telling you to do? What is your Orthodox faith telling you to do? Is that truly what we're taught in church? Is that truly what we're guided that we're to do? Is that what the priests and the deacons try to tell us and try to guide us in our Orthodox faith? How to follow the Orthodox faith? Do we run to our faith or do we walk away? So back to me for half a second. I was baptized by my godparents, Jim and Helen Christakos. Now, what makes Jim and Helen interesting to all of you is that Jim was born in this country in 1950. He was born to immigrant parents. So Mr. Christakos, his dad, immigrated to the United States in the late 30s and early 40s. He left his wife behind in Greece for a little bit. And a few years after he immigrated, Mrs. Christakos followed shortly after. She was a bride from the village that Mr. Christakos wrote home about and said, I'm ready for a wife, I've worked hard, I've prepared myself to have a wife. She came recommended. How they did it in the olden days. Yeah. Obviously, I wasn't alive at this time, but I've heard the story many times. So she came over to the country, and shortly after, they had my nono Jim. Then 6 years later, his little brother Nick was born. And then 3 years after Nick was born, Mr. Christakos unexpectedly passed away. He left a 9-year-old boy, a 3-year-old boy, and a wife who barely spoke any English. She didn't know how to read or write in English. She didn't know what to do. She was in a strange land with different customs, different everything. So put yourself in her shoes for half a second. How would you feel? You didn't speak the language, you didn't know the area, you have 2 little boys, and you're trying to navigate life now, a new normal without your husband. But despite this hardship, she had a benefit. She had a benefit of her Orthodox faith. And her Orthodox faith was not only embodied into her beliefs, but in the beliefs of the community that she was a part of. The community, living their faith as a young immigrant community at the time, in the early 50s, rallied around Mrs. Christakos. They taught her how to write a check, how to manage her money, how to ask for things. And she didn't know how to drive, so they taught her how to navigate the Des Moines area bus system, how to enroll her kids in school, how to do everything that somebody needed to do to survive. So, because of this, because of the community, my godfather ended up growing up in the church because there were people who were living their faith. They had the living water, the living spirit in them that said, hey, we need to take care of this family. We need to live the faith and the spirit that is guiding us. We need to live it and express it in that form, and they did. They helped Jim and Nick. They helped guide them through childhood and adulthood, and they helped Mrs. Christakos too. Now, I don't remember her as well as my mom does. She passed away when I was fairly little. But from what I've heard from everybody in my life is that she was a strong, God-loving, not God-fearing, but God-loving woman. Because without God, without the presence of him, and without feeling the presence of him in her daily life, she would not have been able to live the life that she led in Des Moines, Iowa. So, Nick ended up growing up, graduating from high school, and then he went to Harvard for his undergraduate degree. Nick then graduated from Harvard and went to Georgetown Law. Nick became a managing partner of one of the biggest law firms on the East Coast in the United States of America. It's not just a continental law firm, it's a global law firm. And he's set to retire here soon. Might know Jim, who was 6 years older than Nick, ended up growing up too, stayed at home with his mom and went to Drake University. Graduated with a degree in education, got his master's in education, and taught for 40 years until his retirement. And to this day, he is still actively involved with the church. He is involved in AHEPA, he organizes our Greek food fair back home, and he is there, constantly volunteering. He is living the Orthodox faith. He is fulfilling the life-giving water that is inside of him. Not the physical water, but the spiritual. The spirit of being an Orthodox Christian. So how incredibly inspiring is that? That you can come from such humble means and very difficult circumstances and accomplish a heck of a lot because of your faith and because of the faith of others. Because not only do we go to church to worship during the time of liturgy, we carry that forward in our lives every day. We see in John 4:20 that the main message is that God is spirit and that God cannot be confined to a particular location. Because those who receive the Holy Spirit and believe in Jesus can worship God the Father with purity of heart. This theme in John 4:20 is evident in the story. The Greek community embodied the Spirit, and that living spirit within them guided them to be a light and a living spirit in the lives of the Christakos family. This living water, this living spirit is within all of us, whether we know it or not. And that's the beauty of being Orthodox Christians. But just because we're Orthodox Christians doesn't mean that life is always going to be a smooth ride. When I was starting high school in June of 2021, I was going into high school. Now, if you're doing the math in your head, 2021, she was going into sophomore year. My high school was sophomore through senior. I had graduated from middle school, 9th grade. That's how we do it in Iowa. And it was the summer before I went to high school. And my brother had just graduated from high school, and that was the summer before my brother started college at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. So in Iowa, I don't know about here in Texas, but the tradition is you have a graduation party once your child graduates. So we were getting ready for that. And in that whole process, my dad had a freak accident at home. That accident left him paralyzed from the neck down. And he didn't have the use of his limbs, his bowel, or his bladder. He was completely paralyzed. So in the middle of this traumatic time, here was my mom not knowing what to do. My dad is the primary income earner from our family. My mom is a stay-at-home mom. Here's my dad, completely paralyzed, in the hospital. He had to have a major surgery to relieve the pressure on his spinal cord. He's completely immobile, not able to do anything. So that left my mom just completely beside herself. She had a kid going out of state for college in 2 months. She had one going into high school who was in every activity known to man, and all my activities happened to start in June, unfortunately, so that was difficult. And here she is, husband in the hospital, and she's fighting with insurance companies, because if you've ever had to deal with a health insurance company, you know that they're not nice. And she's trying to navigate this unknown situation. So remember my no Jim? Well, him and his wife Helen saw that my mom was incredibly stressed and honestly not paying much attention to us kids, which is understandable. My mom is the most attentive mom and the best mom in the world. She's been there, but she had so much on her plate. She wasn't paying much attention to us. So they decided to step in and help our family. They provided meals, gift cards, and even little tokens of appreciation for the nurses, doctors, and hospital staff. And they did this without a blink of an eye. I think every single day we had another meal at our house. We had a gift card. We had support. We had everything. And not only did they provide this kind of support, but they provided their insight and that assistance, because my Nona Helen knew what to do because she had worked in the medical field, specifically physical therapy, for over 30 years. So she was able to help my mom make decisions on where to send my dad for spinal cord rehabilitation. So this incredible support continued for 5 months while my dad was all over the Midwest for treatment and for spinal cord rehab. He started out at Methodist Hospital in Des Moines, Iowa in the intensive care unit for 18 days, and then Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota for about 3 months in their inpatient spinal cord rehab unit, and then On with Life in Ankeny, Iowa for another 2 months. Their support, their guidance, and their help never diminished, and it still hasn't diminished. And it just kept on growing as time went on. They saw how much hardship my family was going through, and they ran to the problem. They didn't shy away from it. It's the same principle that the other story also has. People with the living spirit inside of them run to help others that are visibly struggling, just like Jesus did with the Samaritan woman at the well. Jesus saw this woman who was clearly struggling and going through so many internal demons. And instead of turning his back on her, he embraced her and he guided her towards the path of a more spiritual life. And we know that this guidance led the Samaritan woman to bring more people from Samaria to Jesus, which is so incredibly powerful. So I think we can all agree that this story of the Samaritan woman not only inspires us, but it connects to so many life stories when you think about it, which is so interesting to think about. So I went through high school. My dad got better. He's able to walk now. He's a lot better. So yes. So I grew up. My senior year came around. It's time for me to figure out what I want to do with my life, where I want to go to college. Went through the college audition process. I'm a music major currently. So I decided on a school, the University of North Texas, here in Denton, Texas. So I moved to Texas this past August. I'm a freshman, to start school here at UNT, to study vocal performance, classical saxophone, and music business and entrepreneurship. When I started, I knew nobody here. I came down here alone. We didn't have family, no friends, nothing. I came down here alone. So my year started, and all was going well until September, when I started having issues with my voice. It hurt to sing, it hurt to talk, and it inhibited me from participating in lessons, choir, and practicing, which for me, in my major, is an extreme issue, because I need to sing. And for all of us, we need to have the ability to use our voices. We talk. So I talked to my voice teacher about it, She told me to make an appointment with an otolaryngologist, a voice doctor in Dallas. Now, I had no way to get there. I did not feel safe Ubering. It's a 45-minute drive. I had never Ubered in my life before, and I wasn't gonna let a 45-minute drive in a car alone with a stranger be the first time. As a young woman, no. I don't have a car down here, and none of my friends could take me because my appointment, the first available appointment, was at 11 a.m. We all had class. So my mom, my family, and I had no idea what to do. We were stuck. And I was stressing out because I needed to get this fixed in order to continue my degree and continue moving through college. I can't get behind. So it was about a day and a half before my appointment. My mom was thinking to herself, what would Nona Helen do in this situation? Because that woman is so incredibly smart and she knows exactly what to do at all times. She was thinking, what would she do? And then she had a revelation to reach out to the church. She was beside herself because she didn't think of this sooner. After all, we as Orthodox Christians, especially Greeks, are taught that when you move somewhere new, or you need any help at all, you find a church. You go to the church. So my mom got on Google and Googled Greek Orthodox Church, Dallas, Texas. And what came up? Holy Trinity. So my mom called Father Mark, got in touch with him, Father Mark at Holy Trinity. She started to explain what was going on. My name is Maria Skinner. I live in Des Moines, Iowa. My daughter, Margitza, is a student at the University of North Texas. She has an issue. She needs to go to the doctor. Is there anybody who's retired or anybody at all that can take her to the doctor? Now, Father Mark had no clue who we were. He didn't know us. He had no connection to us at all. To him, my mom was some random gal from Iowa, and I was some random gal from Iowa who happened to now live in Dallas. However, despite this, Father Mark immediately jumped onto the issue, and he told my mom he would figure out a solution to my problem and get back to us. So within 30 minutes, he called my mom back with a solution. Katie Stakias would come and get me and take me to the appointment. So my mom calls me in the middle of the day. I answer. She tells me all about it. She's freaking out. And I was freaking out too. We were completely beside ourselves. We could not believe that two strangers would quite literally drop everything to help two random strangers. So the next day, Katie came and picked me up at my dorm, and we instantly developed a close friendship. She told me her side of the story during the drive down to the doctor's office. She told me that Father Mark had reached out to her and described the problem, just like I said earlier. He also said, and this is what gets me, that if Katie couldn't take me to the appointment, he would personally come and get me. Can you believe that? A busy guy like Father Mark offered to take time during his busy schedule to take some random girl from Iowa whom he had never met to the doctors. And we all know here how busy priests are, especially priests at these huge DFW parishes, how busy they are, and that he would take time out of his day to come take me to the doctor. Blows my mind. And mind you, it's about a 45-minute drive from Dallas to Denton, and then going back and forth. Like I said, it blows my mind. Now, Father Mark jumped onto the issue, but they could have casually avoided it, saying, we don't know these people at all. They could be scammers. There are bad people in this world. They didn't know who we were. But instead, they ran to the problem. Actually, they didn't run. They sprinted to the problem. They had the living Spirit inside of them, guiding them to help, just like Jesus did. Father Mark and Katie embodied Jesus' compassion, his willingness to engage with people from all walks of life, and his role as Savior is all. And Father Mark and Katie did just that. So I went to my appointment. All was well. I got it figured out. So after my appointment, Katie got me in contact with Chris and Carrie. Carrie does not know that I'm going to be talking about her today. She does not know. I did not tell her. So she got me in contact with Chris and Carrie, a family that lived near Denton. And so on the drive back, Katie told me all about the family. Chris worked at UNT, Carrie worked at an elementary school, and they had 2 young kids. And she told me so many stories about you guys. So many. And I was like, okay. So about 20 minutes after she dropped me off, Katie got me in touch with him, put us in a group chat. And so I ended up texting, and I met Chris on campus. We got to talking. We exchanged pleasantries. I told him about myself, my backstory, what I was doing here in Texas, and he told me about himself and the family, so on and so forth. So Chris offered for me to start coming to church with their family, and I said yes. Now, I will say I was a bit terrified to start going to church here in Dallas. I came from an extremely small parish in Des Moines, and when Chris used the term Greek megachurch, that freaked me out a little bit. So from that very first Sunday with them, they have treated me like their own child. And I often refer to them as my adopted family. They take me to church. They've opened up their home to me. They call me and ask me how I'm doing. They come to my choir concerts. They take me to the airport, and they even take me to Costco, too. And just like the story before this one, they could have casually avoided the issue, especially since they have 2 young kids, and they are already so busy. But instead of avoiding, they jumped to help me out. They ran to the issue. They didn't avoid it. And I'm so grateful that you guys didn't avoid the issue, because you have made my life so much better. I feel like I have family here in Texas, and I have people to lean on when I need it, which is so incredibly important for anyone. So thank you, Carrie. Thank you for opening your heart to me. I truly appreciate it so much. And I don't think I say thank you enough. I try, but I don't think I do. They continuously embody the living spirit that we've talked about here today. They let that living spirit in them guide them to make a decision that ended up changing my life. And I would not be here today if it wasn't for you guys. So, what do we take away from all this? Well, we should strive in our lives to act like Jesus did with the Samaritan woman at the well. In every story that I've told today, there was one main theme: people running to the issue, not avoiding it. Even when it was hard, awkward, unfamiliar, and strange, they still ran to help. That's living like Jesus. That's the inner living water, the living spirit guiding our actions and decisions. So, I will leave you with this thought. Are you willing to let your inner living water help guide your decisions? Are you willing to open your heart like Jesus did? Thank you all so much for allowing me to be here today.
Thank you.